What is an equitable non-performing loan? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of NoteSchool TV, where we come to you live every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. Got an amazing show for you today, and we've talked about non-performing loans and what they look like. Today, we're going to show you some amazing numbers. But before we get into that, three little pieces here. Number one, if you like what you see on a weekly basis, please just go ahead and hit that like button. Also, you'll need to subscribe so you can get in there and see all of the NoteSchool TV episodes from the past, almost a year and a half. And then make sure you hit that bell notification so that you will know when we are going live each week and you will not miss a minute of NoteSchool TV. Also, if you would like to know more about what we do and what we're talking about here and about this amazing time that we're going through with, non-performing loans, make sure and get a hold of us. Reach out to us. Give us your comments, and you can do that by going to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And now, the news. And now the news. So in our first article today, listings, home price growth continues at double-digit pace. So here's what this looks like. So the average house today is on the market for 61 days from listing to closing. That is 10 days less than it was in 2021. And listings are down 28.4% year over year, and guys, 50% since 2020. Now, on my next slide here, payments are up 25% to a record high. And Eddie, if you'll notice there, I know you're in the background, our friend Tim Ellis wrote this article. And basically what we're saying is that payments based on the all-time asking price of $376,000 and a 30-year fixed rate of 3.69, which is what it is today, makes that payment 25% higher than it was a year ago, or $1,931 a month year over year, principal and interest, not including taxes and insurance. So there is a lot of things going on in the market, and stay tuned. We are going to talk a whole lot more about this next week in our monthly update. So let me bring on our founder, our fearless leader, Mr. Eddie Speed. How are you, sir?
Hey, Joe, how are you?
I'm all right, man. All right.
Well, we have a fun show this week. It's different.
Yeah.
This is an educational show. We don't have an interview this week,
right?
And so this is a working session. And Joe, great idea. I give you the credit. Salute you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
You said, look, we've been talking a lot about what these loans mean and why it's a different market than last time and stuff. And you said, Eddie, what if we just do some slides and do a little training this week and go through some specific assets, right? Go through some history a little bit and go through some specific assets. And so with that great suggestion, Joe, I'm going to do that. And I want you to stay connected and make sure that, we don't miss anything. So we'll try to be efficient in our time, but I don't want to rush it and not get what we need out of it. So
exactly.
So these banks have non-performing loans.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, historically, after 2008, these banks are packaging these loans up and sell them to investors, the delinquent notes. And you're like, well, why would they do that? There's two reasons. First of all, the first big reason is they don't have the manpower to manage that many foreclosures.
Correct.
Second thing is called headline risk, right? So they package these things up. Now, Joe, we say that they're traded into hedge funds. Not all of these are really hedge funds, but they're people with some significant capital. And then they turn around and sell a piece of these assets to companies like ours. Now, you know, and that's how these assets get aggregated and down to where one individual, one guy can buy one single note.
Right.
It's a waterfall of where they come. So people ask me all the time, well, am I going to go call on banks? And the answer is no. Right. Don't call on banks. You're wasting your time. This is how you do it. And there's platforms. We have Notes Direct. There's Paper Stack. There's other platforms where you can buy these assets. And these platforms were built after 2008, really because this is where the market started trending to how you find these notes. Where are they at? They end up in a big box. They go to a smaller box. Then they get dropped out on an individual basis.
Buy them by the case, sell them by the bottle, as we used to say in the last round.
I think that's probably true. So, Joe, I have an old saying, right? I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have a rear view mirror, and this in your and ours first Black Swan event. And so we saw all these different things. I started in 1980. Joe started about 1990, but we've seen all these market cycles. This time, Joe, is just different. Now, I can go back and talk about it. It was in the 80s, and interest rates were really high, and then all the banks went broke in Texas and the Southwest, and then securitization, all these things happened. We're going to talk a little bit, Joe, about the mortgage cycle of the last era, last one, and we're going to talk about this one. But, Joe, we have never seen this ever. I've been doing this for 42 years. I've never seen this ever. That we have a housing boom and a credit crunch. And part of that credit crunch is people can't get a loan. And part of it is people have a lot of defaulted mortgages.
Right.
Right. So we have a lot going on out there. All this is going to equal opportunity if we do it right. Let's look back at the last cycle a little bit, Joe. And here was the typical deal. Now, remember, we're sort of saying, guys, this was the last cycle. This was after 2008. And NoteSchool really, really changed its operation. And Joe, I'm going to say, like, seriously, like probably 80% of our students from 2010 to 2015 did some or all non-performing notes. It was very common. So, Joe, here is just a hypothetical. Let's say that the property was worth $200,000. Or excuse me, the property's worth, I'm going to start over. I usually don't make this mistake, Joe, but we're going to reload it.
There you go. Reel that sucker back in.
Sorry about that. Let's say that the property was worth $100,000. Okay. The payoff on their mortgage was $150,000. Now Joe, that included a lot of interest and fees and other things. Legal balance, we call that. Right. And then the typical deal, Joe, somebody would buy this loan for, say, $45,000.
Right.
Right. That was once again, this was after 2008.
Right.
Now, Joe, your cost in that loan compared to the loan payoff, let's be honest about it. You bought that loan at 35 cents on the dollar.
That's correct.
Right? So 35 cents of what they owe. So, Joe, then you could modify the loan or you could do whatever, but they almost always owed this is what we call the underwater portion, right? Up here. Right. And they were almost always underwater, which meant, Joe, that when at foreclosure, if you got this property back, guess what you ended up with?
You ended up with the house.
A piece of real estate called an REO, real estate owned, in a distressed real estate market.
Right.
Right. What's weird is, and that's every market I've ever lived in the past where there was an abundance of non-performing notes. This time, Joe, we have delinquent notes in a hot real estate market. Right. So the underwater factor, this factor right in here, this was always really big. And that meant that, you know, they weren't going to sell it at foreclosure.
Right.
Right. So they owe more than the property's worth. Right. Here's the other thing, Joe. This is what we'll call the foreclosure cycle time. So we would buy a loan, and let's just say that we bought it in here, and this gold color here represents how long it took Joe to get it foreclosed.
Right.
Okay. So this represented in here, I'm gonna code this foreclosure time.
Right.
Okay. And then Joe, you ended up with right in here, you ended up with
The house.
And this is at foreclosure. That's my little symbol for foreclosure.
There you go.
Now, Joe, now I'm going to do a different code, and that's going to represent liquidating. It'll pick the right color for me.
There you go.
It's going to represent now getting rid of the house. And guess what? You were getting rid of the house when, Joe?
When there was a bunch of houses to be gotten rid of.
Yeah. So what'd you say? The average takes 65 days to sell right now?
Start to finish.
Average sell time on a house back then was over 180 days. So understand the color, whether it's the gold or the blue, represents how long you had it. And Joe, let me just tell you what this represented in here was a lot of work. Because you had to manage not just the foreclosure, but you had to manage the property after foreclosure. And that was a lot more work than the foreclosure management itself.
Absolutely.
Because you had code enforcement, you had to secure it and all this. So understand, this was a boom era, but this was the drag. It took a lot more time. It took a lot more knowledge. Right? And Joe, it took some blood out of you.
It did.
So now let's look at the boom era. This is the credit crunch of today. Now, Joe, the highest and best use today is understanding the current NPL market, non-performing loan market, and it's not your daddy's old Oldsmobile, Joe. It's not that era. It wasn't the 2008 era. I hear people tell me that somewhere. I guess on the internet you can find out anything, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's wrong. And so this market just looks really different. And if I sound animated or excited, or Joe sounds animated and excited, let me just tell you something. We've been doing this long enough, but we know what an opportunity looks like, right? This is an opportunity. So this new cycle, this new era. So Joe, you have a property value today, and Joe, we're just gonna hypothetically pick some numbers here, okay? And this does represent the average of assets we're seeing. So, Joe, we have an average property value of about $250,000.
Correct.
By the way, these aren't junkers. These are good houses.
Yes.
You have an average loan payoff of about 175. Now, this is average.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a cost of the note. And, Joe, I'm going to call it 130.
Right.
Joe, there's enough distance between what the loan payoff is and what the loan payoff is and what the house is worth. I'm going to say the odds of you're getting the house at foreclosure aren't very high.
Right.
You agree with that?
100%.
Like call it almost zero. So this represents 70+% of every non-performing note. This is called an equitable defaulted note. They are in default. They hadn't made a payment for the average of about 3 years. Now, these were loans that were delinquent before the virus. By the way, there's 500,000 of these loans out there. But look, Joe, you paid 130 and you're going to get paid off at foreclosure 175.
That's right.
That's pretty profitable.
It's very profitable.
Here's the other thing. The timeline is different. So Joe, call it 60%. Now, I'm not the guy that's making up all statistics on the spot. Okay. You've ever heard about that?
Yeah.
So 60% of these loans are in some facet of foreclosure before you buy them. Not 100%, but more than 50% of them are already in foreclosure. So call that a cycle that's already happened, Joe.
Mhm.
And now you got to finish the cycle to take it to foreclosure. Now, I'm using an average, Joe, of saying it's going to take, 9.5 months to foreclose. Now, that's not going to be true in some states, and it'll be a little longer in others.
Right.
Now, Joe, when you get this at the end, you're not going to get the house. Here, you bought it and you paid $130,000. Then, Joe, you get paid off at $175,000. And in the middle, Joe, is called profit.
It's called folding money. That's 45 grand. Yeah.
45 grand. And that ain't chump change right there.
That's right.
And it really is the market. So, Joe, what's the deal is, I don't have to deal with this.
You don't have to deal with that. And guys, just so you know, you're not dealing there. You're keeping that foreclosure with the servicing entity or the default servicer that has been working on that loan. So you're taking over that where it is. You don't have to go out and hire a new attorney or any of that. Just walk through the process.
Joe, let's look at some real deals.
There you go.
Okay. This, and we know these are real deals because these were actually on our trade platform, right?
Correct.
I mean, so it's not like we thought they might be out there. These were real deals that were one-off notes that somebody could have bought within the last 60 days.
Right.
Now, this wasn't true necessarily last summer, Joe.
No, it was not.
Okay, so this is a new thing. This was in Warren, Ohio. And I'm going to put some numbers in here, Joe, and let you, if you'll feed them to me, please, sir.
Property value $67,500.
All right.
The loan payoff is $50,900. And the cost of the notes, $26,000.
Say it ain't so.
Say it ain't so. And Eddie, this is it's 14 months past due, and it's about 75% through the foreclosure process.
All right, so here you go. Now you got to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And remember the deal. You paid $26,000 right here, and the payoff is $50,900 right here. Now, Joe, what's the odds that you're going to end up with the property?
It is very slim because the borrower has plenty of equity in that. So they're either going to list it for sale or it's going to go for foreclosure auction. And somebody's going to pay $60,000 for that at the auction.
If you ended up with the property, you could make more money, but the odds are you're not going to end up with the property. And all of this timeline and headache goes away.
Right.
Now, Joe, you and I are going to rapid fire this because we're going to show people like this isn't a fluke. This isn't like one deal. In fact, this is just a little deal. Right? This is a bigger deal, Joe.
It is a bigger deal.
How about that backyard scene there? What's that blue out there, Joe?
That would be called the Pacific Ocean, that big body of water between California and Hawaii.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Property value is $820.
Let me get back to my pencil here.
Yep.
You really are tasking me today, aren't you, Joe?
Yes, we've had a taxing morning, haven't we?
We had a little technology issue. We were on our test beforehand, but Adam, our producer, got us straight, and we're rolling now, baby.
Yes, we are.
All right, so what's the loan payoff?
Loan payoff. Now, this is a little different, right? Because the loan payoff is $730,000, right?
I'm gonna move this up.
Yeah.
here, 730,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we can buy that loan for.
We're just saying the more appropriate place to put the payoff is higher up on the house. What did the note cost, Joe?
$291,500.
What?
$291,500.
Now, by the way, just so you know this, an asset with this kind of juice in it, just so you know this, it's not going to lay around for weeks.
No.
Right? Let's look at the timeline, Joe. How far were they down the road with the foreclosure?
They're down the road with this at about, there's literally about 40 days till the process. Hawaii is a pretty quick process. They're a non-judicial state, so we got about 45 days to fruition.
All right, guys, we are not painting a picture that every deal is this lucrative.
Right.
Okay, we are not saying that. We are not saying that. We are saying this is a lucrative deal. Right? And I can tell you that I've been doing this for a long time, and I deploy a lot of money in this business. Yeah. And I would be on this deal like what I would say is quick. 190 what? 291?
291,500.
And a payoff of what?
730.
And the property's worth what?
830.
100,000 equity. The odds of you're ending up with a house, call it, 15%.
Right.
Right. Because they're selling at the auction for market value.
Right.
At the foreclosure auction. This, guys, is a fluke. That is an inordinate amount of profit. It's a fluke, but it's a real deal. And it was on our trade platform. And it really happened just like we said.
Exactly.
Right? Don't think that every deal is this lucrative, but there are deals that are this lucrative.
Right.
Right. This was a deal in North Carolina. The property was worth $240.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the typical thing on this, Joe. So the house was worth $240.
Right.
This was pretty equitable, right?
Right. Loan
balance was like 10. I'm gonna call it 105. It was 105 and change.
Right.
And I believe this asset was on the market for like 68.
Yes.
And is it hard to foreclose in North Carolina? It's a statutory foreclosure state.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it probably takes all in 6 months to foreclose.
Right.
But guess what? Foreclosure was already in motion.
And Eddie, all of the loans that are on Notes Direct at this point are, the foreclosure has been started. You're doing nothing but funding the loan and letting the default servicer continue the process.
So in here, this was a foreclosure in motion.
Right.
So you're buying it as a foreclosure in motion. So you have to complete the foreclosure. And of course, here you're paying 60. What was that? 68?
68.
And about 105 here.
Right.
And Joe, I don't know what somebody thinks they're looking for to enter a business right now that's a bargain when there's not many bargains in the business. That's why you and Joe, this deal's so equitable. What are the odds you're going to end up with the house?
Yeah.
Like, what's the odds that you're going to end up owning this house?
I mean, you got to look at that and say, the borrower's got $135,000 in equity in this property. And some of you are saying, well, oh my God, well, why wouldn't they? Well, at the end of the day, it's either going to go to a foreclosure sale and it'll sell for whatever it sells for, certainly a whole lot more than 105. Or the seller, finally goes, hey, I better put it on the market.
We had a great guest, Bill Beimel, last week. The guy's bought over $1 billion worth of these kind of loans. We're talking about the equitable loan and the new market condition,
Right.
something that none of us have seen before. And we've all been around this space a very long time. We don't have to go do foreclosure management or property management after the foreclosure, which is what we had to do every time back in the other eras.
Correct.
And so we were just saying it's an unprecedented market, but call it probably an unprecedented market opportunity.
Right.
Now, we're not saying today that we're giving you every detail of everything that you have to do to go do this. But what we're saying to you today is the first thing that I want to know as an entrepreneur is, if I'm going to chase a deal, is it worth chasing?
Right.
So this is sort of the math filter. Now, Joe, this is a different kind of deal. This is different.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is not the same, but we wanted to show you that you may buy a note with another story or another situation related to this. Now, this was a house in New York, and that was a picture taken less than a month ago.
Yep,
So
a few weeks ago. Yep.
It was not stale. What
190 on the value, 190 on the value, and that broker price opinion, the valuation was done on the 22nd of January. The balance on that is $90,700. And the cost of the note on this is just a tick under $38,000. So let's just call it $38,000. So the borrower, yeah, there you go, Eddie. Go ahead.
You go with it, Joe. You did your due diligence on this.
Yeah, so I did look upon it. So if you look there, the last pay date was actually the last due date, and they paid on this 1/28 of 22. And so what that means is they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. They're going on 7 payments past due, but they're continually paying, right? Look below that. They paid on 1/6. They paid 2 payments on 12 in the 12th month. Actually, 3.
They made 3 payments in December.
So these
Joe,
guys,
they missed a payment. They missed a payment that would have been. They got in trouble here, Joe.
That's right.
Okay. They were paying along, and something happened to them, and there's a gap right here.
Yep.
Okay, and that's what got them behind.
That's it.
But now look at how many payments they've made, and all of a sudden you got a reperforming note.
That's it.
Right? And by the way, Joe, they're making a payment in excess of their regular payment, right?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. They actually, the updated, I haven't got the updated pay history, but I checked, and they're paying an extra couple of $100 every few weeks. As a matter of fact, on February 2nd, they paid an extra $200.
So, Joe, in this scenario, I've got an investment in the note. I've got an investment in the note of $38,000, and I'm collecting $550 a month, and they owe me $90,000.
That's right.
That's a reperforming note,
and that's a great yield on that as well.
So that scenario it exists as well. And Joe, God forbid they stop paying. Where am I at?
Well, we've got 38 in the note. We start the foreclosure. We send the notice of default, start the process. And, we're going to get paid whatever the difference is between 38 and what we have in it to foreclose and $91,000.
Right. And
that's a chunk.
And by the way, this loan is accruing interest at the default rate, not the interest rate on the note, but it's at the default rate. And people say, well, it's in New York and it's going to take a long time to foreclose. And that's true, but it's accruing at about 18% interest on top of the 90,000.
Correct.
Right.
And you get to collect all that as well at the end.
So this is another scenario, another possibility with non-performing notes is that you might see some that are reperforming. So it just gives you a kind of a quick example. Joe, what about this nice little place?
Well, that place is it's in Bartlett, Illinois. It's worth $280,000. BPO's the value's a couple weeks old. So 280. And now this is a little different twist, right? No, that's the, yeah, there you go. Sorry. Loan payoff. This is $668,000, Eddie. Cost of the note is Eddie, I actually messed up. The cost of the note's 280.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. The loan or the house is worth 395.
I'm like a carpenter with a board stretcher, Joe. I can
That's
fix
right,
anything.
man. So cost of notes 280.
Okay.
A new BPO is 395,000. And Eddie, literally, this is within a month of foreclosure, of actually the sale being offered, and people go, well, gosh, Joe, why, Eddie, why is the balance so high on this? Well, they hadn't paid a payment in 11 years.
So once again, you are going to get the house on this one.
Yeah.
Right. It is definitely underwater. You see, all this area, in here is obviously showing you that they're underwater. This is the underwater portion, meaning they owe more than it's worth. And so the bottom line is you are going to get the house. So you paid 280 and it's worth 400. The house is worth 400.
Right.
Joe, we deal in some REO in our side of the business. Mm-hmm. Our average cycle time in moving REO is, as you said, less than 60 days. And the aggravation level is not anything remotely to where it was, because now, quite honestly, we can put it on Zillow and some other auction sites, and we can go have it. We can get swarmed with people wanting to look at and buy a house pretty quick. So the aggravation level of selling a property that you foreclosed on and you ended up with the house,
right,
I'm going to say is excessively less than it was. And obviously, as we said, this is a pretty nice looking house.
Yes, it is.
Right? It's a suburb of Chicago, I would guess.
It is outside of Chicago. Great area, low, no crime rate, 1 out of 10. Yeah, just and again, this is just something that, and people say, well, God, guys, how do they not pay in 11 years? No rhyme or reason to that. Just is what it is.
That's some of the reasons these loans get packaged up. So, Joe, this is what you and I call the flywheel.
That's it.
Right? This is what has to happen. Step one, is that you have a trade desk. Step two is that you got to do your due diligence. Right. There is a process to investigate the risk elements of the loan. And then step three, of course, is the closing and funding. Step four is going to be post-closing, what you need to do after you funded it, right? Make sure your stuff's recorded. Make sure you're boarded with a servicer. Then you got loan servicer oversight. Now, remember, you're not servicing this loan. You have a licensed loan servicer doing it. 100%. And then the last thing is going to be default management. Like, yes, you're going to have to make sure that there's insurance on this house, because the guy that hadn't made a payment in 11 years, Joe, he ain't paying insurance on the house. Right. And so another thing is these assets, the taxes in most every case, the taxes are current. Joe, and after 2008, I would say there was about almost no % chance the taxes were brought current on those assets, right?
Underwater in value, taxes needed to be paid, and it wasn't insured. And maybe the taxes hadn't been paid in 3 years.
So, Joe, I moved our commercial for our one-day class to the end.
Right.
Okay. And the reason I wanted to do that today is I wanted to have an uninterrupted time where we could just paint a story of what the market is and where it's going and how it is. Now, understand, we're going to have the market update next week. That's the most watched show every month that we do, is the market update. Thank you for doing that, by the way, everybody. And but we thought this would really be powerful for you, and we wanted to play our commercial at the end about our one-day class, because people say, if this interests you, like, how can you practically do this? How can you learn what you need to learn? How can you learn the steps, the the flywheel. Like, how can you go through there and learn these processes and do it? And most people do it on a part-time basis.
Right.
And we would love to show you how to do it.
Yes.
And we have a lot of experience in doing it and a tremendous amount of success. And as we said earlier, we apologize if we're sort of excited and animated, but I know what a market opportunity looks like. And Joe, we are in that now. This is a bargain compared to anything else I know of.
Yeah. And Eddie, if you're out there trying to flip houses, wholesale houses, do those types of things, that's great. But this, when I say nobody, maybe 1%, 2% of real estate investors out there know this market. And that's why it's so exciting.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll end with a commercial, and you guys can learn how you could press forward with NoteSchool and any other opportunities that looks like there. And Joe, I will see you next week on the market update.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good one.
Great.
See you guys.
Well, hello, everyone. It is Brian with the teaching team here at NoteSchool, and I'm excited that I get to be the one to invite you to the upcoming Gold in Notes class. That's right. It is a one-day deeper dive class that we call Gold in Notes because of how valuable this time spent is. This is a full day that we really get to dig into the nitty-gritty, the whole world of creative financing, not just how to acquire more deals, how to get access to more capital, how to defer a lot of the taxes for us as well as for the sellers that we're talking to, and really learn how to create your own notes. And really, once you learn how to create your own notes, this is really where we spend an entire afternoon really pulling back the curtain on what the note business is, from wholesaling notes, buying and holding performing notes to really build your wealth. I'll even show you a strategy called partials, which is by far the best wealth building tool I've ever seen in the real estate space. And we're definitely going to spend some time talking about non-performing notes, which is by far the biggest opportunity in today's marketplace, solely because of the events that have happened over the past couple of years. This is when people are not paying their mortgages, and we're going to make a lot of big money from these bad debts, and we're going to help a lot of people get a second chance. It's an absolutely fantastic day. Come spend a day really digging and discover a lot of this stuff so that you too can start building your wealth. It's a day meant to really be engaging. Bring your questions, bring your comments, bring your business problems, and we will see you there.